Hello, my dear students. Jai Swaminarayan. So, students, this is our part 4 of the chapter number 1, reproduction in organism. So, in previous lecture, we have started our pre-fertilization events, and we have specially seen the gametogenesis. Now, gametogenesis meaning we have already seen what is gametogenesis. Okay, so the formation of gametes, there are two types of gametes, male gametes and female gametes. So the formation of gamete, particularly in the organism, is we have seen this called as gametogenesis. Now the another event is pre-fertilization event is our gamete transfer. Okay, now gamete is formed, gamete is made. Now it has to be transferred from one place to another. We can say that male gamete will transported to the female gamete. Okay, so the gamete transfer is very important process also. Okay, so fusion of gamete will be there. Okay, so after their formation, male and female gametes must be physically brought together, okay, to facilitate the fusion. Okay, so fertilization is our ultimate goal, but before the fertilization, what has to done is the male and female gamete must be physically brought together physically. Okay, so they have to come together with and they have to fuse between two male and female will be lead to fertilization. Okay, so that's why the gamete transfer is also important for the fertilization. Now, have you ever wondered how the gametes meet? Okay, how gametes, male and female gametes are meeting? So you have to think about that. And in majority of organisms, male gamete is motile and the female gamete is stationary. Okay, what you mean by motile? So motile gamete meaning the gamete which can move from one side to another side, from one place to another place. Okay, so that is called as motile. So in majority of organisms, the male gamete is motile. So male gamete can move from one place to another place. Now what is female? Now female gamete is stationary in most of the cases. So stationary meaning stable. Okay, they will not move from one place to another place. They will stable at only one place, and the male gamete will reach to the female gamete. So exception are few fungi and algae also, which both gametes are motile. Okay, so some exceptions are here for the fungi and few algae. So in that case, both gamete, male and female, are motile. Okay, but mostly male gamete is motile. So keep in mind this thing. So now you can see here in the figure, fusion of gametes will lead to zygote, and zygote will lead to new individual. Now there is a need for a medium through which the male gametes move. Okay, so medium is required. Medium meaning to place, for suitable place is required for the transferring of gametes. In several simple plants like algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, and so water is the medium through which this gamete transfer takes place. Okay, so here in the algae, bryophytes, and pteridophytes, water is the medium of transfer of the gametes. A large number of male gametes, however, fail to reach the female gametes. Okay, so this is not necessary that all the male gametes will reach the female gamete, but large number will be fail to reach the female. Okay, so to compensate this loss of male gametes during the transport, the number of male gametes produced is several thousand times the number of female gamete produced. Okay, so male gametes will be higher in number than the female gametes, because to compensate the loss. Okay, ये जो मेल गैमेट्स का लॉस हो रहा है, जरूरी नहीं है कि सभी मेल गैमेट्स फीमेल के पास पहुँचे. जो मेल गैमेट्स का लॉस हो रहा है उसको कंपेंसेट करने के लिए, उसकी बराबरी करने के लिए जो मेल गैमेट्स है वो हजारों की संख्या में ज़्यादा प्रोड्यूस होते हैं. ओके, दैट्स व्हाई दे विल कंपनसेट विद द फीमेल गैमेट्स. In seed plants, pollen grains are the carriers of male gametes and ovule have the egg. So this is for the seed plants particularly, pollen grains are the male gametes and ovule are the female gamete, we can say egg. Now pollen grain produced in anthers therefore have to be transferred to the stigma before it can lead to fertilization. Okay, so these are the parts of flower particularly. Okay, so pollen grain is a male gamete produced in anther. Okay, anther is a part of flower, therefore have to be transferred to the stigma. Stigma is a also flower part, okay, female, and before it can lead to fertilization. Okay, so fertilization के लिए ये जरूरी होता है. In bisexual self-fertilizing plant, for example peas, transfer of pollen grains to the stigma is relatively easy as anthers and stigma are located close to each other. Now this is the case of bisexual plant. For example pea. Okay, pea means मटर. So उसमें क्या होता है? So all both the male and female the gametes will be produced from the same plant. Okay, so that's why called as bisexual. That's why it's relatively easy. Okay, because anthers and stigma, it meaning female and male are located close to each other in their own plant. So pollen grains soon after they are shed come in contact with the stigma. Okay, वो जल्दी ही जैसे ही pollen grains जनरेट होगी वो तुरंत ही अपने स्टिग्मा के ऊपर कांटेक्ट में आ जाएगी. बट इन क्रॉस पॉलिनेसिंग प्लांट इट मीनिंग डायोसियस प्लांट्स के अंदर क्या होता है, अ स्पेशलाइज इवेंट्स कॉल्ड एज पोलिनेशन. सो पोलिनेशन इज द प्रोसेस of this from male to the female, so facilitate the transfer of pollen grain to the stigma. Okay, so this is the process pollination. Pollination meaning transfer of pollen grains to the stigma. Okay, so this is in the case of cross pollinating plants. For example dioecious plant. Dioecious meaning both the male and female plants are different, not in the same plant. Now pollen grains germinate on the stigma and the pollen tubes carrying the male gametes reach the ovule and discharge the male gametes near the egg. It meaning whenever they reach the female gametes, now in the case of ovule and discharge the male gametes. Now discharge meaning they release their pollen grain to the female egg. In dioecious animals, okay, here we are talking about animals now. So since male and female gametes are formed in different individuals, the organism must evolve a special mechanism for the gamete transfer. So in the case of animals, this is required for another special mechanism is required for the gamete transfer in animals, dioecious animals. Now successful transfer and coming together of gamete is essential for is a most critical event in sexual reproduction, the fertilization. Okay, now the successful transfer of male gamete to the female gamete and coming together of gamete is essential. Okay, as we know this is very important step for the most critical event. Now we will see the most critical, most sensitive and most important the event in sexual reproduction is the fertilization. Okay, so here the fertilization is important, most important. Okay, okay, now our fertilization. So the most vital events of sexual reproduction is perhaps the fusion of gametes. Now the gamete is transferred from male to female. Now the fusion is necessary here for the fertilization. Okay, so now male and female will fertilize. This process called syngamy results in the formation of diploid zygote. So here zygote is made when the male and female gametes will be fused, and zygote is a product here. The term fertilization is also often used for this process. Okay, so the formation of zygote is also often called as fertilization. So fertilization and the formation of diploid zygote are two similar words. The terms syngamy and fertilization are frequently used through interchangeably. So syngamy also we can use in the interchangeably form. In some organisms like rotifers, honeybees and even some lizards and birds like turkey. So the female gamete undergoes the development to form the new organism without fertilization. Okay, so these are some organisms, rotifers, honeybees, and even some lizards and birds like turkey. So the female gamete undergo development without any fertilization. Okay, so here is another case. So this phenomenon is called as parthenogenesis. Okay, without fertilization organism is growing, so this phenomenon is called as parthenogenesis. Very important. Now where does syngamy occur? In most aquatic organisms such as majority of algae and fishes. Okay, most aquatic meaning water body, they are live in waters. So the amphibians, algae, fishes, so syngamy occurs in the external medium. For example, here water, okay, because they are aquatic organisms, so water is their external medium. So outside the body of the organism, so medium is outside the body of any organism. So this type of gametic fusion is called as external fertilization. Here you can see the image. Okay, here male fish and female fish, two different male and female. So they fertilize external body from the outside of the body. You can see here the eggs of fishes, and they fertilize outside the body, not inside. So organisms exhibiting the external fertilization show the great synchrony between the sexes and release a large number of gametes into the surrounding medium. Here is the water, in order to enhance the chances of syngamy. So fertilization show the great synchrony meaning they show the great relationship between two male and female gametes. Okay, male and female animals also. So synchrony is very important for their reproduction. Okay, so that's why they release large number of gametes into the medium, for example water, in order to enhance the chances of syngamy. So syngamy is our ultimately goal here, and the medium is here water for aquatic organism. So water is external body, and external fertilization will take place in the water, like that this picture will show you. Now this happens in bony fishes and frogs, where a large number of offspring are produced. So here new offspring, new progeny will be produced. A major disadvantage is that the offspring are extremely vulnerable to predators, threatening their survival up to the adulthood. Here the disadvantage also there. Disadvantage meaning नुकसान, उसका इस प्रोसेस का नुकसान क्या है, डिसएडवांटेज. So that the offspring are extremely vulnerable, it meaning predators को लिए वो sensitive है, they are sensitive for their hunters. Okay, शिकार. So उसके लिए वो शिकार के लिए sensitive है. अगर शिकारी उनको will hunt them and they will no longer live. So their survival up to the adulthood. So adulthood meaning उनको एक मैच्योरिटी तक पहुंचने में वो नुकसान करेगा. सो हियर इज द डिसएडवांटेज ऑफ दिस एक्सटर्नल फर्टिलाइजेशन, बिकॉज द सराउंडिंग देर आर डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनिजम्स ऑल्सो प्रेजेंट. दैट्स वाई दिस इज द डिसएडवांटेज ऑफ predators. Okay, so predator will kill them. In many terrestrial organisms belonging to fungi, higher animals such as reptiles, reptile meaning snakes, birds, mammals, and in majority of plant, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperm and angiosperms. So syngamy occurs inside the body of organism. So this is another case. Many terrestrial organism, meaning the terrestrial meaning organism which are living on the land, not in the aquatic body, in the water. So terrestrial meaning live on the land. So belonging to fungi, higher animals, humans are also included in higher animals. Okay, reptiles, birds, mammals. So humans are mammals. In the majority of plants also, bryophytes, pteridophyte, gymnosperm and so these all terms are you have already learned in our 11th science. Okay, so this is the classification of plants. So syngamy occurs inside the body. Here is the important thing is syngamy occurs inside the body. So this process is called as internal fertilization. Here you can see the picture, the female gamete and the male gamete will fuse, okay, in the human body. So in the organism's body. So here the internal fertilization we can say. So human is also example. In all these organisms, egg is formed inside the female body where they use with the male gamete. Okay, egg will form in female body and the male gamete have to reach this egg. In organisms exhibiting the internal fertilization, the male gamete is motile and has to reach the egg in order to fuse with them. Okay, फ्यूज़ होने के लिए मोटाइल होना ज़रूरी है मेल गैमेट्स का, तो ही वो फीमेल एग तक पहुंच पाएगा. इन दिस even though the number of sperms produced is very large. Okay, as I said earlier, it is not necessary that male gametes will reach, all male gametes will reach to the female. So the solution of this problem is to sperm produce is very large amount of male gametes, and there is a significant reduction in the number of eggs. So eggs will be the reducing number, decreasing number, but comparatively the male gametes will be larger inside, larger in number. So in seed plants, however, the non-motile male gametes are carried to the female gamete by the pollen tubes. Here is the special case of in the seed plants. So seed plants में क्या होगा, the non-motile gamete will be non-motile. Here male gamete is non-motile and are carried to the female gamete by the pollen tubes. So here pollen tube is a way for to reach the male and female gametes. Now the post fertilization events. So now fertilization is completed. Now what is after the fertilization? Okay, so post fertilization events. So events in sexual reproduction after the formation of zygote are called as post fertilization events. After the formation of zygote. Okay, here this IMP term is to be remembered, after the formation of zygote. Now what is zygote? Okay, so formation of diploid zygote is universal in all sexually reproducing organisms, meaning that this zygote is very important in all the organisms which are reproduced by the sexually. So in organisms with external fertilization, zygote is formed in the external medium, usually in the water. Okay, so this is the case of external fertilization where the medium is water. So zygote will be formed in water. Now whereas in those exhibiting the internal fertilization, the zygote is formed inside the body of organism. Okay, so this is the difference between external fertilization and internal fertilization. The formation of zygote take place inside the body, they are called as internal fertilization. But if zygote will be formed external, meaning outside the body, so the process is called as external fertilization. Now further development of zygote depends on the type of life cycle of the organism has and the environment it is exposed to. Okay, so here the further development meaning अब जाइगोट में से न्यू बेबी न्यू ऑर्गेनिज्म को बनना है, ठीक है. सो अवर अल्टीमेटली गोल क्या है कि न्यू ऑर्गेनिज्म विल बी फॉर्म आफ्टर द फाइनल प्रोडक्ट ऑफ रिप्रोडक्शन. सो दिस डिपेंड्स ऑन द टाइप ऑफ लाइफ साइकिल ऑफ ऑर्गेनिज्म. ओके, लाइफ साइकिल हर एक ऑर्गेनिज्म की डिफरेंट लाइफ साइकिल होती है. सो एनवायरनमेंट ऑल्सो द फैक्टर which depend the zygote's formation and developments. So also the environment, surrounding environment is also necessary. In organisms belonging to fungi and algae, zygote develops a thick wall. Now in the case of fungi and algae, the zygote develops a thick wall here that is resistant to desiccation. Desiccation meaning वो रजिस्टेंट करेगा, मतलब कि लड़ेगा, प्रोटेक्शन होगा उसके पास बिकॉज ऑफ दिस थिक वॉल एंड द डैमेज. सो डैमेज से वो बचाएगा अपने आप को. ओके, सो जाइगोट को बचना जरूरी है, इसलिए वो डेवलप अ थिक वॉल. नाउ इट अंडरगोस अ पीरियड ऑफ रेस्ट बिफोर जर्मिनेशन. सो देयर इज स्पेशल पीरियड ऑफ रेस्ट, रेस्टिंग पीरियड इज देयर बिफोर द जर्मिनेशन. नाउ इन ऑर्गेनिजम्स विथ द हैप्लोडिप्लॉन्टिक लाइफ साइकिल, as you have read in class 11. So zygote divides by the meiosis to form a haploid spores. Now we should know what is haploid and diploid because in previous video I have already talked about this thing, haploid and diploid. So there are two different life cycle in the plants. Okay, haplontic, diplontic, haplo-diplontic. Okay, so the zygote divides by the meiosis. So meiosis is the process of cell division. So zygote will be divided by meiosis to form, they will form the haploid spore, and that grow into the haploid individual, meaning haploid new organism will be grow. Now consult your class 11 book and find out what kind of development take place in the zygote in organisms with diplontic and haplo-diplontic life cycle. So you should know, and you have to visit your class 11th book, consult please, so you will get the answer. So guys, the zygote is the vital link, vital meaning very important link, that ensures the continuity of species between the organisms of one generation and the next. So zygote is very important link, connecting link, and that will ensure the continuities. Continuity means एक स्पीसीज से दूसरी स्पीसीज जो न्यू बनती है. ओके, सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एज कंटिन्यूटी. So between the organism of one generation and the next. Okay, so generation by generation this has to be continue, the characters of continue. So the zygote is important. Now every sexually reproducing organism including the human also, okay, so begin the life as a single cell. हमारी भी लाइफ है वो सिंगल सेल से ही बनती है, शुरुआत होती है एक सिंगल सेल से. सो उसको हम बोलते हैं जाइगोट्स. ओके, so every sexually reproducing organism including human beings, they begin their life from the single cell. Okay, here you can see कैसे जाइगोट बनता है, जाइगोट में से एम्ब्रियो बनता है, न्यू बेबी बनता है, फीटस. ओके, हर एक ऑर्गेनिज्म में ये चीज़ होती है. नाउ द एम्ब्रियोजेनेसिस, द अनदर पोस्ट फर्टिलाइजेशन इवेंट. So embryogenesis refers to the process of development of embryo from the zygote. Now zygote is completed. Here the development of embryo take place after the formation of zygote or from the zygote. So during the embryogenesis, genesis meaning formation, and formation of what? Embryo, embryogenesis. So during the embryogenesis, zygote undergoes the cell division. Here mitosis will be take place and the cell differentiation. Cell will differentiate into their, depending on their function, different. So cell will differentiate. While the cell division increases the number of cells in developing embryo, cell differentiation helps the groups of cells to undergo certain modification. Okay, so during this cell differentiation, the cell modification also is there, because cell has to function, cell has to form depending on their function. So different functions of cells are there. So the इस एम्ब्रियो को अलग अलग हिस्सों में बांटना जरूरी होता है. ओके, सो मॉडिफिकेशन इज देयर फॉर द सेल टू फॉर्म द स्पेशलाइज्ड टिश्यू. तो अभी जैसे कोई भी न्यू बेबी बनता है, कोई भी न्यू ऑर्गेनिज्म बनता है, तो उसके डिफरेंट पार्ट्स जो होते हैं वो स्पेशलाइज्ड टिश्यू के अंदर फॉर्मेशन होता है. तो पहले स्पेशलाइज्ड टिश्यू बनेंगे, फिर उसका ऑर्गन बनेगा. सो एंड ऑर्गन्स टू द फॉर्म द ऑर्गेनिज्म. Now you have studied about the process of cell division and differentiation in previous class. Okay, as we have already learned in our class 11, the process of cell division, mitosis, meiosis and differentiation also we have learned. Okay, so like this. Now animals are categorized into oviparous and viviparous based on the whether the development of zygote take place outside the body of female parent or inside the female parent. Okay, so there are two types of animals, oviparous and viviparous, because this is depend on the development of zygote. Okay, inside or outside. So whether they lay the fertilized or unfertilized egg or give birth to directly to the young ones. Okay, so there are two types, oviparous and viviparous. Now in the oviparous animals में क्या होगा? Like reptiles meaning snakes, birds, the fertilized egg will be there. They covered by the hard calcareous shell and laid in the safe place in the environment. Okay, so oviparous animals egg बनाएंगे, उनका egg रखेंगे environment में, और egg में से वो अपना नया organism produce करेंगे. After a period of incubation, young ones hatch out. So young one will be hatch out. Okay, the safe place is also necessary for the egg. So these are called as oviparous animals. You can see in your picture Okay, so the bird and his egg, its egg. Now, on the other hand, the viviparous animals. Now, majority of mammals, including human beings, also. Okay, so the zygote develops into a young one inside the body of female organism. So here is the difference between viviparous and oviparous. So the elephant, here the example of elephant and human. Okay, so फीमेल में क्या होता है, सो द न्यू यंग वन होता है वो बॉडी के अंदर डेवलप होता है. न्यू बेबी विल बी फॉर्म इन द इनसाइड द बॉडी ऑफ ह्यूमन, here human and here in the case of elephant. So this is called as viviparous animals. We are viviparous animals. Now after the attaining a certain stage of growth, the young one are delivered out the body of the female organism. So after the certain age, certain months, the new baby will be delivered out, okay, at the certain age, because of the proper embryonic care and protection. So here in the case of viviparous animals embryonic care is there. Okay, जैसे न्यू बेबी है, न्यू बेबी की केयर अच्छे से होती है बाय द मदर, सो एंड प्रोटेक्शन भी अच्छा होता है न्यू बेबी का. सो द चांसेस ऑफ सर्वाइवल ऑफ यंग वन इज ग्रेटर इन द विविपोरस ऑर्गेनिज्म. सो द न्यू बेबी होगा, उसके बचने के चांसेस ज़्यादा होते हैं कंपेयर टू ओविपोरस. सो विविपोरस इज गुड देन दैट of oviparous. So here the another type of the organism, or we can say the another type of post fertilization. Okay, so here you can keep in mind please this, the oviparous and the difference between viviparous and oviparous. So this is the things. Now in the flowering plants, the zygote is formed inside the ovule. In the case of flowering plants, the zygote will be formed in ovule, as a ovule. Now after the fertilization in flowering plants, the sepals, petals and stamens of the flower wither and fall off. Wither meaning they will die, they will dry. So ये प्लांट्स के अंदर ये फर्टिलाइजेशन के बाद उनके सेपल्स, पेटल्स, स्टेमेंस गिर जाते हैं. ओके, दे विल डाई. सो दिस इज द केस इन फ्लावरिंग प्लांट्स. ओके, तो सेपल, पेटल्स, these are the plants of flower. Now the pistil however remains attached to the plant. Pistil will be there. Zygote develops into the embryo and the ovules will be developed into the seed. Now zygote will be developed into embryo and ovule will be developed into the seed in the flowering plants. Now the ovary develops into the fruit. Now the ovary of flower which will be developed into the fruit, which develop a thick wall called as pericarps. Okay, so in the case of fruit, so ovary will develop into fruit and the thick wall is called as pericarp. Here this is very important. Pericarp is a thick wall formation by the fruit from the ovary. Now that is the protective function. So pericarp meaning they will protect their seed. Okay, so after the dispersal, seed will germinate. Seed dispersal होगा जैसे ही fruit का, तो seed will be germinate under a favorable condition. It meaning they will produce the new plant. After germination they will produce new plant. So this is the final product of reproduction. Okay, so you can see here the S is seed and P is pericarp. So pericarp is protective layer. You can see here another different cases are there. Okay, so here you can see this is the seed and this is pericarp. Okay, outer layer. So this is the protective usefulness of this. Okay, so please keep in mind these things. So guys, here our chapter 1 is completed. Now in next video we will start our chapter number 2. I will try to make your question banks from this chapter, and please you have to also from this chapter you have also make notes and for ask question to yourself. Okay, so please making notes, keep making notes and keep making questions also from this chapter. Okay, please. So we will see you in next lecture. Okay, so Jai Swaminarayan. Thank you.